It started with an invitation. My brother, Tyler, sent it to me through a group chat with my parents. Baby shower at mom and dad's place this Saturday. Be there. Along with the message was a photo, a balloon arch, pink and gold, one of those Pinterest-looking setups. In the center, beaming like a second sun, stood Tyler and Madison. She was holding her stomach. She wasn't just there. She was pregnant. My jaw didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. That would have been too easy. Instead, I stared at the screen like I was staring into a joke with no punchline, a cruel riddle I was too slow to solve. She wasn't supposed to be in that picture. She wasn't supposed to be at any baby shower. We hadn't spoken about kids in over a year. The topic had become a ghost between us, something we used to chase but eventually gave up hunting. Or at least I thought we both did. The part that cracked the world in half wasn't the bump. It wasn't her fake smile. It was Tyler's hand resting on it. I didn't answer the group chat. I didn't ask questions. I sat there in silence, a kind of silence that doesn't exist in nature. Something artificial. I could hear the hum of the fridge and the cars on the street, but everything felt like background noise to a scene I hadn't been invited to witness. A movie where I was no longer cast. Madison came home later that night like nothing was wrong. Her hair was a little wind-tangled and her eyes looked tired but satisfied, like she'd had a good day. She kicked off her shoes by the door and threw her purse on the couch like she always did. Nothing dramatic, no flinching, no secretive vibes. Just casual betrayal dressed in routine. I asked her, calm as a lake before a storm, "How was your day?" She looked me in the eye. And she said, "Just work. Stopped by your mom's for a minute, had some lunch. Nothing special." She had the audacity to lie so cleanly, so surgically, I almost admired it. I waited until she went to bed. I stayed up pretending to scroll my phone, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. My brain wasn't just connecting dots. It was mapping out a timeline, a grid of betrayals I hadn't seen before. Madison had been visiting my mom more often in the last 6 months. Tyler started coming around less. My parents always looked awkward when they talked about him, like they were holding in something that didn't belong to them. At the time, I thought it was just family politics. Now I saw it for what it was. Silence that wasn't accidental. It was complicit. At 2:13 a.m., I stood in the hallway, watching her sleep. I wasn't sure if I hated her or myself more in that moment. She looked peaceful, the kind of peace you don't get unless you believe you've won. And I realized she did. She thought she won. That's when the rage showed up. Not loud, not like in the movies. This wasn't shouting. This was surgical. Cold. Focused. I walked outside, called Tyler. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. On the third call, he picked up. "Yo, it's late," he mumbled, half asleep. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just said, "You need to come to my house. Now." He hesitated. I heard the gears turning in his head. "Why?" "Because if you don't, I'm going to come to yours. And I think you'd rather have this conversation face to face. Alone." He hung up. 15 minutes later, he was standing in my driveway, sweatshirt half-zipped, looking like a teenager caught sneaking out. And that's exactly what he was, a grown man caught in the act, hoping the consequences would be less than deserved. When he walked into my living room, I didn't waste time. I didn't sit him down. I didn't offer him coffee. I asked, "Is it yours?" He froze. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Just stood there. "Madison. The baby. Is it yours?" Tyler swallowed. Slowly. Then he did the worst thing he could have done. He smiled. Like it was funny. Like this was some sitcom moment where the audience would laugh and clap and everything would be okay. Then he said the words I will never forget. Not because of what they meant, but because of how he said them. "Yeah," he said. "It is. She told me you couldn't give her what she needed. So I did." And just like that, the floor disappeared. The room spun. Reality bent itself into something unrecognizable. I didn't punch him. I didn't touch him. I just stood there as everything I ever believed about love, family, loyalty, everything crumbled into a pile of ash I didn't know how to breathe through. Then came the part that shattered whatever was left. Tyler looked at me and said, "She wanted to tell you." I told her to wait. "Your parents already know. They're happy about it. Honestly, they were tired of watching you two pretend." There was no oxygen in the room after that. I remember grabbing the edge of the counter just to keep myself standing. And then, From the hallway, Madison's voice cut through like a knife through cloth. "Just tell him already, Tyler. Stop dragging it out." She walked in. No guilt. No hesitation. Just that same satisfied look from earlier. And then she said it. "Your brother gave me the child I dreamed of. We've been together 5 years. You never could. He did it in one. Even your parents love him more than you. The world didn't end. It just stopped making sense. And that was only the beginning. I didn't speak. Not at first. My mouth opened, but no words came. My mind couldn't decide which fire to put out first. Rage, betrayal, humiliation, heartbreak. They all burned at once. I looked at Madison standing there in her nightshirt, one hand on her belly like she was posing for a damn maternity ad, and Tyler beside her, arms crossed like he was proud of what he'd done. The two people I trusted most in the world had built a world behind my back, and invited everyone but me. My first instinct was to laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was unreal. I turned away from them, paced to the window, stared out into the night like the answer to this madness was hiding in the dark. "You've lost your mind," I finally said, still facing the glass. My voice was calm, too calm. "You think this is normal? That you two can play house like this?" Madison didn't flinch. "We're not playing anything. I'm building a future. Something you couldn't give me." I turned. "A future? With him?" She nodded. "At least he doesn't lie to himself about who he is. You spent 5 years pretending to be enough for me. But you never were." I stared at her, trying to recognize the person I married. Her voice wasn't even angry. It was bored, like she was reciting a speech she'd rehearsed 100 times. Tyler stepped forward. "Look, man, I didn't mean for it to happen like this." I snapped. "Like what exactly? You didn't mean to crawl into my bed when I wasn't looking? You didn't mean to knock up my wife and host a damn baby shower with my mother?" He winced. "It wasn't like that." I cut him off. "You know what the worst part is? It's not even the betrayal. It's that you're both standing here trying to convince me it makes sense. Like I should understand. Maybe even forgive. Like this isn't the single most disgusting thing I've ever seen." Madison rolled her eyes. "You're so dramatic." That did it. That one comment cracked something in me. Not like a scream, not a punch, but a fracture. A shift. I walked right past them into our bedroom. Madison followed, of course, probably thinking I was going to beg, cry, plead. I opened the closet and pulled out a duffel bag. Started throwing clothes in. No real plan. Just movement. Something to keep me from going completely numb. "You're leaving?" she asked, as if that wasn't the most obvious thing in the world. "No," I said. "You are." She blinked. "Excuse me. You're not staying here. Not with me. Not in this house. You and your little co-parent can figure it out elsewhere. I'll be gone for the night. But when I come back, I want everything of yours gone. Everything." She didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stood there. I could see it now. She expected a fight, a chase, maybe even a breakdown. But not this. Not the cold exile. Tyler had the nerve to follow me to the porch as I walked out with my keys. "Where are you going to go?" I didn't answer him. I just looked him dead in the eye and said, "You better hope this baby never asks what kind of man their father really is." And I drove. No music. No destination. Just silence. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But I replayed every moment from the last year in my head, looking for the signs. The weekends she said she was with her sister. The days she claimed to be stuck at work. The nights she came home smiling at nothing in particular. It all added up now. This wasn't a mistake. It was a project. Planned. Executed. And polished. I ended up at a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town, nursing a coffee that tasted like hot regret. I stayed there until the sun came up, watching strangers come and go, wondering how many of them were carrying their own betrayals in silence. At 7:12 a.m., my mom called. I let it ring. Then she texted, "We need to talk." I turned the phone over on the table and stared at the ceiling, wondering if it would fall on me, wondering if I even cared anymore. The story wasn't over. But the version of me who walked into that house yesterday, he was gone. Dead and buried in the echo of my brother's smile. When I got back to the house that evening, the first thing I noticed was the silence. It wasn't the peaceful kind. It was manufactured, like someone had tried to scrub the place clean of its sins in under 12 hours. Madison's shoes were gone from the entryway. Her coat was missing from the hook. Her perfume no longer lingered in the air, just the faint scent of lemon cleaner and something else, finality. I walked through the living room slowly like it was a crime scene. In a way, it was. The couch we used to fall asleep on watching movies. The dining table where we'd have lazy Sunday breakfasts. Every object had been repurposed into a prop for a lie. On the kitchen counter, there was a note. Not handwritten. A printed email, folded once. I left the keys on the coffee table. I'll send someone to pick up the rest of my things in a few days. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just a tidy exit from a mess she helped make. No signature. She didn't even sign her name. But it wasn't over. I grabbed the note, walked to the couch, and sat down in the silence she left behind. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't play music. I just sat and stared at nothing, waiting for the next betrayal to find me. And it did. Around 9 p.m., I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, the notification popped up. I played it on speaker. Hey, I don't know if I should be doing this, but I thought you deserved to know. I work at the clinic Madison's been going to. I recognized your last name from her paperwork. I probably shouldn't be saying anything, but it's not Tyler's baby. She's been lying. She came in a few months ago, asked for paternity testing options, and then never followed through. Look, I'm sorry. Just be careful, okay? I sat there, staring at the phone like it had grown teeth. Not Tyler's. Not mine. Someone else. I didn't move for a solid 5 minutes. I think part of me actually laughed, just one sharp exhale that didn't sound human. There was no bottom to this pit. Every time I thought I'd hit the floor, it caved in further. I called her. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. Then I texted, is there anyone else I should know about before I start asking the neighbors too? She didn't reply. But it didn't matter. The silence said everything. She thought she could rewrite the narrative. Make me the failed husband. Paint Tyler as the savior. And now this wild card. A third player in her little game, someone she hadn't even had the decency to warn Tyler about. And suddenly I saw the whole picture. This wasn't a love story. It wasn't even an affair. It was a power play. A social climb. She used Tyler. She used me. And now she was probably halfway to setting up camp in someone else's life, pitching the same sob story about how she was just a woman trapped in a loveless marriage. I stared at my phone, feeling the fury twist itself into something sharper, more focused. She thought this was over. But it had only just begun. I grabbed my laptop, opened every social media account I had, and started scrolling. Her friends. Her followers. Her likes. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for the truth. The real truth. The one buried under 1,000 filtered photos and fake smiles. And at 1:14 a.m. I found it. A tagged photo. Private account. Someone I didn't recognize. But Madison was in the background. Sitting at a bar. Laughing. The timestamp was from the same night she told me she was working late on a big presentation. She wasn't alone. Next to her was a man I'd never seen before. His hand rested casually on her thigh, like it had done that many times before. She was leaning into him, her smile lazy, familiar. I clicked the tag. His name was Brendan. He was a personal trainer. Divorced. No kids. He and Madison had been following each other for over a year. Dozens of likes, subtle comments, hearts, fire emojis. All there, hiding in plain sight. Tyler wasn't the father. Brendan was. And somehow I wasn't even surprised anymore. But I wasn't angry at Brendan. He was just the latest fool on her carousel. Maybe he knew, maybe he didn't. But the one thing I knew for sure? Madison had just lied herself into a corner. And I was done staying quiet. I didn't sleep that night. My body went through the motions, showering, changing into clean clothes, even brushing my teeth, but my brain stayed locked in a war room, plotting the angles. Every word Madison ever said to me was now evidence. Every hug, every night we spent watching bad TV, every fake tear she shed over negative pregnancy tests, it was all part of a show she directed, produced, and starred in. Morning hit like a slap. No dreams, no rest. Just the cold light of day showing me what my life had become. I was the ghost of a man who used to believe in loyalty, and she was the knife I didn't see coming. I knew what I had to do. I texted Tyler first. Meet me at Dad's office. Noon. Don't be late. Short. No room for excuses. No hint of the storm I was bringing. My father's office was neutral ground. It was where we had birthday dinners, family meetings, those awkward wine and cheese nights where my parents pretended we were a close-knit clan instead of four people orbiting the same sinking planet. I chose it on purpose. They'd all be there, Mom, Dad, Tyler, and I was going to detonate the truth right in front of them. At 11:45, I arrived with a folder. Inside, printed screenshots, dated messages, a full timeline of Madison's betrayal, not just with Tyler, but with Brendan too. I had evidence, pictures, quotes, everything. At 12:03, Tyler showed up, his hoodie pulled over his head like it could shield him from accountability. My parents walked in behind him, holding a tray of cookies like we were hosting a brunch instead of an intervention. Good, you're all here, I said. My mom smiled nervously. Honey, what's this about? I dropped the folder on the coffee table like it was a loaded gun. Read it. They hesitated. My dad opened it. His eyes scanned the first page, then flipped. And again, his jaw tightened. Mom looked over his shoulder, hand covering her mouth. Tyler leaned forward, curious, until his face drained of color. You printed our texts? He croaked. I looked him dead in the eyes. I'm not done. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the Bluetooth speaker in the corner. Pressed play. The voicemail from the clinic worker filled the room. Her voice was clear, cautious, spilling the one truth that crushed them all. It's not Tyler's baby. The room went still. Tyler's face twisted into something between confusion and horror. What do you mean it's not mine? She said. I cut him off. She lied. To you. To me. To everyone. My mother sat down slowly, like her legs had given up. My father took a long breath and looked at me, not with pity, but with a new kind of respect. The kind that says, you stood up. You didn't fold. I found the real father, I continued. His name's Brendan, personal trainer. Been in her life for over a year. She played both of us. Tyler stood, pacing like a caged animal. She told me you were emotionally abusive, that you manipulated her. She said I saved her. My laugh was sharp, humorless. Of course she did. That's how she operates. She tells you what makes her the victim. And you wanted to be the hero so badly you didn't ask questions. My mom finally spoke. How could she do this to you? To both of you? I looked at her, deadpan. Because she's a liar. And liars don't love. They use. Tyler sat down, head in his hands. He looked younger than I'd ever seen him. Small. Defeated. I thought we were having a baby? You were having a lie, I said. Silence fell again. No one moved. Even the cookies sat untouched. An ironic symbol of the family that just imploded in on itself. And then my dad stood up, walked over to me, and did something he hadn't done in years. He hugged me. Not the quick, awkward side hug men give to avoid emotion. A real one. Firm. Honest. I'm sorry, son, he said into my ear. We should have seen it. I nodded but didn't say anything. The apology was overdue, but I wasn't about to start handing out forgiveness like coupons. I left them there, in that living room of unraveling illusions. I didn't need to hear Tyler's excuses. I didn't care to watch my parents scramble to reassemble their perception of their golden daughter-in-law. Let them choke on the truth the same way I had. As I walked out the door, my phone buzzed. A message from Madison. We need to talk. Don't do anything stupid. I stared at the screen, amazed at how fast she could pivot. Still trying to control the narrative. Still pretending she had any power over me. I typed back. You should have thought of that before turning our life into a scavenger hunt of lies. Then I blocked her. And for the first time in weeks, I could finally breathe. The days that followed were a strange kind of quiet. Not peaceful. Not restful. Just quiet, like the air after an explosion where everything is still smoldering and the only thing left to do is sort through the wreckage. I didn't return to the house. I checked into a small business hotel on the edge of town, nothing fancy, but clean, anonymous. The kind of place where no one asked questions and the wallpaper didn't carry memories. I needed the distance. From her. From the furniture we picked out together. From the bed where she laid with someone else while I was still dreaming about being a father. I wasn't sleeping much, but that was fine. Sleep is overrated when your entire life is a crime scene. What I was doing, though, was documenting. Everything. Her lies. The messages. The clinic voicemail. The Brendan photos. I had them all saved, sorted, labeled, and ready. Because I wasn't going to just move on. I was going to burn the illusion she built to the ground. Day 4 at the hotel, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, until I remembered. Madison was due to send someone to pick up the rest of her stuff. Maybe this was the moving company. Maybe it was her flying monkey of the week. It wasn't. Hey, it's Brendan. I froze. What the hell do you want? I asked, tone cold. I got your number from her phone, he said quickly. Look, I know this is weird, and you probably want nothing to do with me, but I just found out, and I think we should talk. I laughed. Oh, you just found out? What gave it away? The baby registry or the fact that she's been playing you like a slot machine? He didn't rise to it. His voice was tight, tired. She told me she was divorced, said you were out of the picture. I believed her. I had no idea about your brother. None. I only found out because I ran into him at her place yesterday. He looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. I leaned against the headboard. Let me guess. He didn't know about you either. Nope, Brendan said. She told him I was just her trainer. Said she cut me off months ago. I laughed again, sharper this time. Unbelievable. She's a damn Russian nesting doll of deception. I don't know what she told you, Brendan said, but I thought I was the only one. And now she's pregnant and I don't even know if it's mine. I haven't even seen a test. That made me pause. You haven't? I asked. No. She said she'd show me the results when she gets them. But she's been dodging the topic. Keep saying it's early and she doesn't want to stress herself out. I exhaled slowly. There it was. The final trick. She's playing you too, I said quietly. There's no confirmed father. She's stringing you along for security. Just like she did with me. Just like she did with Tyler. There was silence on the line for a moment. Then Brendan said, what do we do? And that was the first time I didn't feel alone in this. We expose her, I said. 2 hours later, I met Brendan at a coffee shop downtown. We sat in a corner booth. 2 men tied together by the same black hole of a woman. He was taller than I expected. Athletic, clean-cut. Looked like the type of guy you'd see on a fitness blog talking about core strength and meal plans. He didn't look like a guy who got duped. But then again, neither did I. We laid everything out on the table. The texts, the photos, the timelines. Our stories overlapped in eerie ways. Same nights, same excuses, same lies. She'd used different versions of the same script on both of us, just tweaked enough to keep the masks in place. And then Brendan dropped the final bomb. She told me she was planning to move in with me next month. I blinked. Move in? Yeah. Said she needed a fresh start. A real man who could give her stability. He shook his head, disgusted. Meanwhile, she was still telling your brother they'd raised the kid together. It was so bold, so absurd. It almost sounded fictional. But it wasn't. She wasn't sloppy. She was strategic. Calculated. She'd built a web so wide she thought no one would talk to each other. She was wrong. We left that coffee shop with a plan. I'd already spoken to a lawyer. No kids, no shared assets, prenup in place, thank God, but I wanted more than a clean break. I wanted truth. And Brendan? He wanted a paternity test and to erase himself from her circus before it became legally binding. So we agreed. We'd confront her. Together. Not to beg. Not to fight. just to deliver the facts to her face. The era of quiet pain was over. It was time for the reckoning. We met her at her new place, a sterile apartment complex on the east side of town, the kind with gray walls and luxury vinyl floors that felt more like a temporary lie than a home. Brendan had been there once before, apparently, to help her move in. He didn't even know Tyler had paid the deposit. That's right, Tyler. Madison had told Brendan that she paid for it, working double shifts. Told Tyler it was a gift from his parents. Told me nothing because by the time she moved in, she'd ghosted every remaining thread of communication I hadn't already severed. I wasn't nervous when we knocked on the door. I felt hollow. Not numb, more like I'd burned out every feeling I could have for her, and what was left was pure instinct. Brendan stood next to me, arms crossed, jaw tight. This wasn't about getting answers anymore. It was about removing her mask. Ripping it clean off. The door opened slower than I expected. She looked different. Hair tied back. No makeup. Not her usual glossy version of herself. She looked almost real. Then she saw me. Then she saw Brendan. And her entire expression fractured into panic. What's going on? She asked, trying to sound confused, but her eyes were already scanning for exits. Brendan spoke first. Invite us in, Madison. Or we can do this here, where your neighbors can hear. She stepped back, lips pressed thin. You're both crazy, she muttered as we walked past her. The apartment was mostly bare. A few plants. Half-assembled crib in the corner. A stack of unopened baby books on the floor like props in a place she hadn't memorized yet. You've been busy, I said casually, scanning the room. New place. New life. Multiple realities still intact, or are they collapsing already? She folded her arms. I don't owe either of you an explanation. No, I said, stepping closer, but you're getting one. I pulled the folder from my coat. The same one I gave my parents. Handed it to her. She didn't take it. Just stared at it like it was a live grenade. Brendan dropped the second hammer. I want a DNA test. Official. No games. No delay. No excuses. That broke the ice. She laughed. Loud, bitter, unhinged. You think this is about you? Either of you. Brendan and I didn't respond. We just let her unravel. I don't have to explain myself to two men who treated me like an option, she said, her voice rising. You, she pointed at me, were emotionally checked out for years. You think being physically present means anything? You weren't there for me. You were there for your fantasy. Then she turned to Brendan. And you? You followed me around like a puppy. But the second things got real, you panicked. I raised a hand. Enough. You don't get to rewrite this. You don't get to blame us for your mess. Brendan added. We compared dates, conversations, lies. We know everything. She paused, and then her face changed. That look, the one she wore when she was cornered. When the lies had dried up and the last card in her hand wasn't a queen. It was a joker. She sat down, crossed her legs slowly. So what now? She said. You want me to admit I played you both? Fine. I did. You were easy. You, because you were desperate to fix something that was already broken. And you, she pointed at Brendan, because you were so eager to be needed, you didn't notice I never needed you. It was surgical, cold, like she was trying to make us feel small so she could feel big again. But she underestimated us. I leaned forward. We're not here for your apology. We're here so that when you tell your next story, your next lie, you'll know that two people out there know who you really are. And we're not afraid of you anymore. Brendan stood. The test happens next week. You show. Or I go to court. She smirked. You're both pathetic. I nodded. Maybe. But at least we're not fake. And with that, we left. No yelling. No drama. Just silence, ours. Outside, the wind cut sharp across the parking lot. Brendan turned to me. I feel like I've been living in a hallucination. I nodded. We all were. We stood there for a moment, two men who shared the same villain. Not friends. Not enemies. Just survivors of the same war. She's going to spin this, he said. She'll have a new story by tomorrow. Let her, I said. She can live in fiction. I'm done with it. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I meant it. Madison didn't show up for the test. We waited in silence at the clinic, Brendan pacing near the receptionist's desk like he was holding in dynamite. I just sat there, calm, the same calm you get after you've cried out every ounce of grief and dried yourself into stone. The nurse came out after 20 minutes, clipboard in hand, lips tight. "She's not coming," she said gently, eyes flicking between the two of us. "She called earlier. Said there was a mix-up in scheduling." Brendan let out a breath that sounded more like a snarl. "She's stalling." I nodded. "She's panicking. The control is slipping." We left without another word. The parking lot was silent again, like it always seemed to be when we dealt with her, the air heavy with unspoken things. Brendan leaned against his car, running a hand down his face. "She's not going to cooperate," he said. "She's going to disappear. Play the long game." "No," I said. "She's not disappearing. She's just shifting the game. And it's about to get worse." He looked at me. "What do you mean?" I didn't answer. I just unlocked my phone and showed him. It was a post on Facebook. From Madison. A photo of her in a sundress. Glowing smile. Belly round and cupped by her hands. Captioned, "Grateful for this journey. Not every man steps up, but the right one always does." Dozens of comments. Hearts. "You go, girl. So strong. Wishing you all the love, mama." I scrolled down. There it was. A comment from my own mother. "So proud of you, sweetheart. You're going to be an amazing mom." Brendan looked like he was about to break the phone in half. "Your mom?" "She's still playing along," I said. "Still pretending this didn't implode in her own living room." Madison wasn't disappearing. She was rebranding. Turning herself into the victim in a new narrative. One where the right man had nothing to do with Brendan or Tyler or me. She was crafting the next phase, building sympathy, casting shadows to hide the mess behind her. And the worst part? It was working. Tyler texted me that night. "She told me you're threatening her. That you and Brendan are trying to scare her into doing something dangerous. If something happens to the baby, it's on you." I stared at the message like it was written in a foreign language. "Threatening? Dangerous?" I replied with 3 words. "Check the facts." 5 minutes later, he replied, "You're just mad because she chose me." That was it. I dropped the phone on the table, walked to the sink, poured myself a glass of water and stared out the window, watching nothing in particular. The truth was right there, inches from his face, and he still chose her version. Brendan called. "I'm done," he said. "She's toxic. I don't care if the baby's mine or not. I'm out." I didn't blame him. "You don't have to fight a snake just because it bit you," I said. "You walk away. You let it rot on its own." But I wasn't done. Not yet. I had one final card to play. My family. My parents hadn't spoken to me since the living room explosion. No calls. No check-ins. Just radio silence while they played house with Madison and Tyler, pretending their perfect little daughter-in-law had somehow survived the storm. So I went to their house. I didn't call. I didn't warn. I just knocked. My father opened the door. His face hardened when he saw me. "We're having dinner," he said flatly. "I won't stay long." He hesitated, then stepped aside. The dining table was lit with candles. Madison's laugh floated out from the kitchen like it belonged there. She walked in carrying a tray of garlic bread like this was her house now. She saw me. Smirked. "Didn't know we invited ghosts tonight," she said. I ignored her. Walked to my mother. "Do you still believe her?" I asked. Mom stiffened. "This isn't the time, honey, it's the only time," I said, voice firm. "Because once this baby is born and the test is done, it'll be too late for you to pretend you didn't know." Dad set down his fork. "This is not the place for drama." I turned to him. "You raised me better than this. Or maybe I just thought you did." Madison sat down, unbothered. "You're not in control anymore. That's your real issue." I walked to her slowly. "You built your little empire on lies," I said. "Enjoy it. Because the second it cracks, everyone here will remember that I warned them." Then I turned to leave. But before I reached the door, Madison called out, casual, almost amused, "By the way, Brendan was a backup." You were the mistake. I didn't turn around. She wanted the last word. Let her choke on it. As I walked into the night, I felt the cold air hit my face. And for once, I welcomed it. Because it meant I was finally on the outside. And that's where healing begins. The next week was a waiting game, the kind where every hour dripped like molasses. I was no longer angry, not in the way I had been. The fire had burned through me already. What remained was sharper, cleaner, like steel. I was focused now, watching her, watching everyone who believed her. On Wednesday morning, I got the call I didn't expect. It was from Brendan. She texted me, he said, voice like gravel. She says she's ready for the test. I almost didn't believe him. She's serious? I asked. She booked the appointment herself. Sent me the location and time. Friday, 10 a.m. She told me to come alone. I paused. You think it's a setup? Brendan laughed, but there was no humor in it. With her? Always. I didn't tell him I'd be there, too. I didn't need permission. I wasn't there to intervene, I was there to witness. Friday came cold and gray. I parked 2 blocks away from the clinic, watched Brendan walk in from my car, then followed 5 minutes later. Not to spy, just to make sure nothing slipped by unnoticed. I stayed in the lobby watching the door, seeing the pieces click into place. Madison arrived late. Of course. No rush when the world already bends for you. She walked in like she owned the place, sunglasses still on despite the cloudy sky, a coffee in one hand and a file folder in the other. Brendan stood to greet her, face unreadable. They spoke quietly at the front desk. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read the tension in Brendan's shoulders. Madison did most of the talking. The nurse gestured to the hallway. They went in together. 15 minutes later, he came out alone. She did it, he said, approaching me. Cheek swab, signature, the works. I get the results next week. I nodded. What did she say? She was calm. Cold. Said she wasn't worried. That tracked. Madison didn't panic on the surface. She froze. Went still. That's how she operated, like a spider waiting for the web to tighten. Then Brendan said something that caught me off guard. She asked me what I'd do if the baby's mine. I blinked. What did you say? I told her it doesn't matter. I'm not raising a child with a liar. If the baby's mine, I'll support it. But her. He shook his head. She's out of my life. We stood there for a moment outside the clinic, just breathing. Do you think she even knows who the father is? He asked. I didn't answer, because the truth was I wasn't sure she did. I don't think it ever mattered to her, not in the way it should. To Madison, fatherhood wasn't about love or commitment. It was about leverage. Later that night, I got another message from Tyler. This one was different. She's changing. She's been distant. I think you were right. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Too late, I wanted to say, she's already rewired your life. Instead, I left him on read. Let him sit with the silence. Madison wasn't unraveling all at once. She was coming undone thread by thread, losing control of each version of herself as the truth seeped in from the edges. And then it happened. The next day, I got a call from my mother. She sounded shaky, hesitant. Can we meet? She asked. Please. Just us. I agreed, mostly out of curiosity. We met at a park halfway between our houses' neutral ground. She sat on the bench before I got there, clutching a thermos like it might anchor her. I need to say something, she began. And I don't expect forgiveness. But I want to explain. I didn't speak. Just waited. She looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time in months, I saw guilt. I believed her because I wanted to. Because she told me things I needed to hear, things I wished were true. She said you were cold. Distant. She said you didn't want kids. That you made her feel invisible. I exhaled slowly. And you didn't think to ask me. I didn't want to doubt her, she admitted. She was polished. Always had the right words. And she made me feel like we were finally close. That was her trick, I said. She gives people the version of her they want. My mother's eyes welled. Your father and I, we see it now. We were wrong. Horribly wrong. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. I just didn't know what to do with that kind of regret. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded note. She left this at the house. Maybe you should read it. I took it. Opened it. One line. Handwritten. If I go down, I'm not going alone. My mother looked at me, lips trembling. What does that mean? I folded the note again. Tucked it in my coat. It means the truth scares her, I said. And scared people are dangerous. The game wasn't over. It was just changing shape. The DNA results came in the following Tuesday. Brendan called me at 7:42 a.m., voice raw like he hadn't slept in days. It's mine, he said. No emotion. Just fact. I didn't know what to say. We both knew it was one of two outcomes, but somehow the certainty hit harder than the guess. You okay? I asked. No, he replied. But I will be. There was a pause. He wasn't done. She emailed me last night before the results came in. Said if it's mine, we should rebuild what we started. Called it a fresh beginning. I nearly laughed, but it came out as a bitter snort. Let me guess. She suddenly found forgiveness, clarity, and maternal instinct? Brendan's silence answered for him. She's playing the long game, I said. She doesn't want you. She wants control. She's always wanted it. He sighed. I told her no. Told her I'd be there for the kid. But that's it. Legally. Financially. Nothing more. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. 2 days later, Tyler showed up at my hotel. I heard the knock and opened the door half expecting food delivery. Instead, it was him, my brother, standing there like a man who'd walked through a fire and didn't know if he'd survived it. He didn't ask to come in. Just leaned against the doorframe, eyes bloodshot. You were right, he said. About all of it. I didn't speak. Let him keep going. She told me the baby was mine. Said we'd be a family. Even had me start moving some stuff into her place. Then I saw the post. Brendan tagged in a photo. Excited to raise our daughter together. I raised an eyebrow. She forgot to untangle the timelines. He nodded slowly. I confronted her. She said she'd never really promised anything. That I misunderstood. Classic Madison. She made me feel like I was finally the one who mattered, he whispered. That I'd won something. You didn't win, I said gently. You just lost last. He looked up at me, pain etched deep into his face. I messed up, man. I betrayed you. For someone who never saw me as more than a fallback. There it was. Not an excuse. Not justification. An admission. I didn't hug him. Didn't need to. I just stepped aside and let him into the room. We sat in silence for a while, two men with the same scars, stitched differently. Then he said something I hadn't expected. She's threatening to sue Brendan for full custody. I snapped my head toward him. What? She says he's unstable. Unfit. That she has witnesses who'll testify to his temper. Brendan didn't have a temper. He had restraint, which was more than anyone could say for her. She's building a story again, I muttered. Because she lost control. That's what this is. He nodded. She even asked me to speak against him. Said it'd be our way of keeping the baby safe. My jaw clenched. And? I told her I'd think about it. I turned sharply. You, what? I needed time, he said quickly. I wanted to warn you first. Warn him. I'm not helping her. Not again. I stared at him. Long and hard. Then slowly nodded. She's not going to stop, I said. Even now. Not until she burns every bridge and still blames the ashes on everyone else. I want to help fix this, he said. I don't know how, but I want to try. I believed him. Maybe not entirely, but enough to know he meant it. So we called Brendan. Told him everything. About the threat. About the manipulation. And that's when Brendan told us something new. She's trying to move to another state, he said. Said she got a job offer. A better life for the baby. Of course she was. Run, reset, rebuild. Classic Madison. She can't just take the kid, Tyler said. Can she? She can try, Brendan replied. But not if we stop her now. And so the plan changed. It wasn't about exposing her anymore. It was about stopping her. Before she erased the last trace of truth from the life she so carefully weaponized. We were done reacting. Now we were moving first. We filed the emergency petition the next morning. Brendan's lawyer drafted the paperwork at 3 a.m. and by sunrise it was in the court system an injunction to block Madison from crossing state lines with the child until paternity, custody, and visitation were legally established. It was aggressive. It was public. It was war. She found out within hours. Brendan got the first call. He didn't answer. Then she texted, "You think this changes anything? You think a piece of paper can stop a mother from doing what's right?" I saw the message when he forwarded it to me. Then came the voicemail. Not to him, to me. Her voice was low, calm, too calm. "I don't know what you think you're doing, involving yourself in things that don't concern you. But don't forget, I still know everything about you. The things you never told your family. The things I could mention to the right people." I played the message back twice, not because I needed to hear it again, but because I couldn't believe how predictable she'd become. Threats. Deflection. Paranoia. So I saved it. Forwarded it to Brendan's lawyer. Fuel for the court should it come to that. The court date was set for the following week. And that's when she broke. She didn't show up at the clinic. She didn't text Brendan. She didn't harass me. She vanished. Her phone went to voicemail. Her social media locked. Her apartment? Empty. Tyler drove by twice, nothing. No car. No lights. No sound. She was gone. The first instinct was panic. Brendan called me around midnight. She ran. Took off. She knows what's coming. I told him what I believed, what I knew deep down. She didn't run to disappear, I said. She ran to regain control. She'll resurface once she thinks she's got leverage again. That's how she survives. Sure enough, 3 days later, Tyler got the text. A photo of the baby, newborn, pink and fragile in a hospital blanket. A caption, "She's here. And you'll never meet her if you keep choosing them." He came to me, shaking, phone in hand. "She's using the baby like a shield." "No," I said, voice flat. "She's using the baby like a weapon." We contacted the lawyer again. Filed for contempt. The court issued a demand for her to return with the child or face legal consequences. But she didn't answer. She didn't post. She didn't even respond to her own parents. Until the knock came. Not on my door. On Brendan's. He opened it to find her standing there, pale, hair unkempt, baby carrier in one hand, the other trembling. No makeup, no clever lines, just a woman on the verge of collapse. "I don't want to fight anymore," she whispered. Brendan called me immediately. I arrived within 15 minutes. She didn't look at me when I entered, just sat on the couch, holding the baby, whispering lullabies like a scene from a life she never earned. "I messed up," she said softly. "I messed up everything." I didn't answer. Brendan sat across from her. Calm, careful. "I'll support the baby," he said. "But not you. Not ever again." She nodded like she already knew. "I just wanted something that made sense," she murmured. "Something that felt mine. I thought if I controlled the story, it would protect me from the truth." "Which truth?" I asked. "That you were scared? Or that you were selfish?" She didn't respond. Brendan stood up. "We're going to court. Everything will go through legal channels now. No more secrets. No more lies." She looked up then, eyes hollow. "Am I really that awful?" she asked. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to tell her every detail of what she destroyed. Every memory she twisted. Every life she spun into chaos. But I didn't. I just said, "You made yourself that way." She left the baby with Brendan. Walked out without another word. No drama. No begging. Just silence. I watched her go from the window, and for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel anything. Not hate. Not pity. Not even relief. Just the ending. Later that week, we signed the paperwork. Brendan got primary custody. Tyler apologized to Brendan in person, finally looking him in the eye. "And me? I moved out of the hotel. Got a new place. No shared memories. No ghosts. I kept the folder, though. Not out of bitterness. Out of memory. A reminder of what happens when you let someone rewrite your life without holding the pen yourself. If you're reading this, if you're going through something even half as twisted, listen carefully. The truth doesn't just set you free. It wakes you up.